I wanted to begin. I don't normally gush over movies,
Really?
but I was so impressed.
Oh,
Um, this was, first of all, you managed to keep me disoriented, any watcher, throughout a movie, at least until the halfway point, and still engaged.
oh,
That's
fantastic.
rare because normally if you stay disoriented, you're like, where are we going with this? What's going
Right,
on?
right. No, I get what you're saying. Yeah,
But
yeah.
you did this key thing about making us like and care about these characters, even though we were disoriented. So those flashbacks where we see them hanging out, we see them playful, we see them loving, that was amazing because
Oh,
we still didn't understand what was happening, but we liked them. So we wanted to know what was going on. We knew the protagonists, were dealing with something heavy and dark, but what is it? And of course, at the halfway point, it started revealing itself and opening up. So that was incredible. Thank you for that.
oh, no,
Tell
no
me a
problem.
little
That's
bit
fantastic.
about that thought process as you were scripting this and deciding how to unfold the story.
Oh, wait, did you ask me how did I decide how to unfold the story?
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
I had a launching point of where I knew I wanted to start, which was the opening sequence that you saw that. And I had bullet points all the way through. So the whole thing, was absolutely planned out. It's just that when I started filming it, I didn't have a completed script, and so we kind of were writing and going at the same time, but we knew where we were wanting to go.
Gotcha.
Uh, and as you know, as it progresses along, it does become a film that becomes chaotic, but hopefully a planned chaoticness
Mhm.
to the whole thing, where it hopefully it lands for you. And it was a difficult process, but hopefully it worked for you.
Well, it was a very thoughtful process. It allows the audience to think their way through what's happening.
Yeah.
So, but instead of being confused as you're thinking your way through, you're just going on the journey, you're going on the ride. So you see the missing person poster and you're like, wait a minute, hang on.
Yeah,
Um, and then you see other things happening where dots just start connecting.
yeah,
And you're like, okay. And then we know this is kind of the pandemic era that's kind of brought up. We know that Paul he's bedridden, and he's on oxygen, so we're assuming it's COVID related, but it's not clear. And so I wanted to know, was that deliberate where, there's some metaphor there as well? Because you have Rhea, who is caregiver, um, and a little dark and mysterious at the same time. We don't know if she's evil or angelic. We're not sure. But then she very much cares for this man. Was there some reason that you weren't clear about what happened to him?
yes, absolutely. Yeah. And one of my favorite things to listen to is when people walk out of the theater and they are talking about it and they're having arguments. And it's wonderful. It's like they're having, no, I think this is what happened, but no, she did this and then but she says this and then he did this. And I love hearing the
Oh, great.
engagement and involvement that these people have when walking out of a theater. And I think, as a filmmaker, I think that you need to engage the audience. I think a lot of films are handed to people, and I don't know what happens. I mean, what's the point of going to it if you're going to be handed everything? So I wanted to create viewer involvement, and hopefully I've done that. And it's, to me, that is the what is it, the meat of filmmaking. If you can get people involved, it absolutely carries you through the whole film, and then you're engaged. You got to be engaged.
Exactly. I think John and I even talked a little bit about, wait, what happened to him? Well, what do you think happened to him? I don't know. I think this happened to him.
Uh,
Um, so you handled directing, acting, lighting,
uh,
sound. Um, and again, a couple of us were talking about this, and it looks high budget.
oh,
We've seen high budget that doesn't look this good,
a
along with the
great
effects
compliment.
and the makeup. There was one scene where you see the back of Rhea and she's kind of gaunt. Um, and you're like, that's amazing. I mean, that was so well done.
Oh,
And
thank
so John said, nope, they did this on their own. It's true indie. They just kind of used their house and the land. And I'm like, that's incredible. Talk to me a little bit about the resourcefulness that you guys had to employ to make this happen.
I'll give you an example here. So yeah, it was only ever a crew of two, and the crew of two, one was on camera most of the time, and there's sometimes we were both on camera. And so there's a scene when she's sweeping out back, and then she walks in. I'm in the foreground, but I'm holding something, and I had to rack focus. So I ran a string from the focus puller down to the floor and taped it to the wall. And so I was standing on one foot, and I was pushing down on the string, racking focus with my foot while standing on one foot while she walks in while being on camera. So that's the
That's
involvement.
crazy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was fun to think about how to make all these things. Like everything's practical. There's
Right.
things flying around, and there's things that move on its own. All of it is in camera practical. There's no CGI, there's no AI. I reject that wholeheartedly. And it was it sometimes the rigs took a couple of days to set up and practice and make sure it worked, and then we shot for a little bit, and then next day do the same thing again. So it was a labor of love. I really like making the things work, and I like making things on my own. I love doing things on my own. It makes it challenging and fun.
Talk about the atmosphere, because we had several different kinds of the atmosphere. We had the happy go lucky with their friends having dinner, and then we had the isolation of Rhea that felt very lonely and almost a little sad. And then, of course, we had Paul, who, he's bedridden, but even with his eyes sometimes trying to engage a little, like he would eat. You almost noticed that he had some presence there, but there were several different types of atmosphere that we were exposed to. Talk to me a little bit about why you chose to do that.
Okay, you're talking about physical atmosphere or emotional atmosphere? I mean,
Well, a little of both, because they're joined.
yeah, they really are. I mean, usually the physical atmosphere with the weather that Big Bear creates for us, which is amazing. We definitely had the 3 seasons to work with, and we shot over 2 winters. So there would be some shots that there'd be snow outside, and then I had to wait a whole nother year to get snow outside again. So
Wow.
we shot for 3.5 years or 2.5 years, and those atmospheres definitely helped emote the emotions that were going through both Raya and my character as well. Um, it was conjoined. Everybody was stuck at that time during COVID. We shot during COVID, so your environment is kind of how everyone felt. People
Yeah.
just trapped and isolated. it was quite amazing to be able to have that ready, available, the atmosphere for Big Bear and the emotions that my characters were going through.
So the film plays with some blurred lines between dream, memory, reality. How did you work with the cinematography or editing to show that disorientation?
I'm sorry, my camera's moving all over the place. It's like catching me like this and catching me. I don't know, it's very weird. Sorry, please say that again.
No problem.
Cracking.
There are a lot of blurred lines between dream, memory, and reality. How
Yes.
did you work with the cinematography or editing to show that disorientation beyond the script?
Well, you know, that's setting the camera and setting the mood is something I think that is instinctual. It's not necessarily something that uh, I learned from. I mean, you learn from other filmmakers, but you know, when you're in there with your camera and you know the scene that you're going to do, and you want to create that emotion, whether you set the camera, you know, lower or higher or mid. I mean, just some simple things you can do to change the feeling. It's very important, and I think it's instinctual, and I think I'm a very visual filmmaker. And it felt natural for how I was creating these shots and to create the emotion. Um, I, that's all I can say is just an instincts, you know, of how to set it. I mean,
So
every
when
filmmaker has their own style, and I don't know what my style is. It's just what I am.
it's how you see things.
Yeah.
Um, well, because you have a lot of vastness with the wide open spaces
Yes.
outside, and then you have, some very intimate close-ups when you're inside the house, and then there are some very specific points where you're seeing things abstractly, you're not sure what you're seeing. There's more of an emotion coming through than an actual, did I see what I think I saw? Um, and all of that it's technically difficult to do all of that at once. And I think that's what I meant by that question. Uh, and I didn't realize that you were filming this over 2.5 years. How did you stay driven to work to the final product of this? Because
Yeah.
that really is the key to what I've found between people who are wildly successful and people who just kind of dream a lot is they have the tenacity to just push through to an end.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that process,
Well, I like this wildly successful idea. I mean, it'd be nice if that happens. That'd be great.
right?
But, I think the being driven, I like to complete things that I start. And I didn't want to waste the time that we had. And I know a lot of people are suffering during COVID. A lot of people, you know, mental and physical problems and, you know, death and whatever. It was horrible, horrible for people. And we were fortunate to have this cabin to go to. And we had the luxury of time. We could
Right.
only shoot when we're doing outside scenes, we could only shoot for about an hour a day because I wanted to capture the light because I didn't have a crew and
Mhm.
I couldn't put up a 20 by 20 scrim or anything like that to diffuse the light. So we had just twilight to shoot and the sun would go over the mountain, but it wouldn't go over the horizon. So it gave us about 40 minutes of shooting time. And so I could set up one day, shoot the next, set up and shoot. So we shot several days, about 120 days total. And yeah, it took a lot to pry yourself off the couch when it's raining outside and think, oh, this is good atmosphere. I need to get off the couch and do this.
Oh,
Yeah, but
wow.
you know, Seinfeld's on. I, I kind of want to watch that instead. So yeah, there was some motivation. Everybody has motivational issues. I think
Yeah.
that if you're a filmmaker, you are ultimately a daydreamer.
Yeah.
You could dream about this.
Any creative, sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so daydreaming, it's already there in your head, but then you got to put it out there. And so you got to capture it. And that that is the was the difficult part of prying yourself from daydream to reality.
So you said that you blocked out the progression of the story before you wrote the script. So you kind of knew the big pieces and where it was going to go. Tell me a little bit about the writing process then after that, because I'm a writer, I fiction, nonfiction, whatever, and I am a plotter. I do, put everything out. Of course, things change as you're actually drafting. But talk a little bit about that writing process because there's so little actual dialogue. And
Yeah.
I don't think I noticed that until I thought about it
Oh,
because
good.
the story is so rich and visual.
Oh,
All
nice.
of this is going on in your head. And suddenly you realize there's not a lot of speaking. Like Raya's all alone. So who
Yeah,
is there to
shit.
talk to?
Yeah.
Tell me a bit about the script.
Well, as I said, we were writing it as we went along, and I had it planned out, and the visuals were all there. I knew what I wanted to capture, and having known Raya for 20 some years, we've been together for such a long time. I knew that the things I was going to write for her was natural, but also, this is a difficult person. She's not this morose. She's the happiest person I've ever been around. And so, but I knew that she could go into these dark places. And same with Tracy. I knew the type of person I purposely kept her a little bit in the dark because I wanted the difference between with Tracy Toms and Eugene Bird being the friends on the outside. They were in their little pod, and I wanted to create. They were having just a fun time, more of a. This is just everyday life, and I wanted to create those two worlds. So when they would call, her Raya's character was dire, had consequences, and Tracy's problems at the time, Amy, her character's name, was just frivolous, but still, in her world, it was her dire moments, but two different worlds going on right there. Um,
And I thought it was interesting too that Amy let like months go by
mhm.
without like driving up there and being worried. But I also understood that, I was kind of pushing her away a little bit at that point. So it didn't seem that unusual. But that sudden trigger that made her say, we need to get in the car now.
Yeah.
And of course, we all know what happens at the end. Um, with what were you thinking when you decided to let that kind of time lapse where the snow had melted and again that those triggers that string of disorientation? Tell me about that moment.
Yeah, it was one of the things where I wanted it to be enough time to create questions in someone's head about, well, how much were they talking? Was she actually talking to her at the time? I wanted to create a question so someone looking at like you just did, we're wondering why did she wait so long? Was it really that long? And was it where she had been talking to her at all? It was because Raya's character slowly goes crazy and
Right.
isolated here. So what the mixture between reality and what actually was happening uh, is vastly different.
Well, yeah, because we're not even 100% certain that what she visualized happening towards the end was real.
Right, right,
That's not clear.
right. But
We
there
know
are
they
dire,
passed away. We don't know specifically how.
right.
Was that real or imagined? And I love that unanswered question
Oh,
because
great.
you could
Good.
go anywhere with it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, there were
And
some. dire consequences for people in this, but yes, yeah, there was, yeah, yeah, good. I'm glad you loved that part. Makes me happy.
Right. Because, at first, as it's being revealed to you, you're like, oh, well, that's what happened. But then towards the end, as everything's winding up, you're like, did it happen? What did he do those things?
Yeah, yeah,
Or is she just losing it? Uh,
yeah,
you're not sure. And that was really fun. And again, that ambiguity is not easy to pull off intellectually. If you watch big budget films, they tend to not even try.
yeah.
And I think that's why I love indie films so much because
I,
people will try. They will go there. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. And in this case, I think it worked brilliantly.
thank you.
Um, is there anything else you'd like to touch on before we part ways?
Uh, no, I think we covered it pretty well. I mean, one of the things that I think that is important about how we made the film, but also I'd like for people to forget how we made the film is that it really was just, a crew of two people at all
Right.
times, never anybody else there. But then I also want people to forget that and look and judge the film on its own, you
Oh,
know?
we totally forget it. That's easy because
Okay.
it's so well done. But I love that you mention it because other indie filmmakers are going to watch this and go, well, if that could happen, maybe I could try. So I
Yes.
love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, please do. If you got an idea, don't wait. Don't wait on money. Don't wait. Don't wait because there's a good. I don't mean to be discouraging, but there's a really good chance that you're going to have to fund this yourself, and
Right.
you can do it. It is possible. So get out there and do it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time and thank you so much for the film.
Oh, that was wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you.